All right, guys, I want to introduce to you today somebody that is going to make you laugh, and you all had know me well enough by now to know that's what I like to do. Now, I forgot to ask you in the pre-meeting, is it Teresa or Theresa? How do you
Therese.
pronounce it? It is
Therese.
Teresa. Okay, so the H is silent, basically.
Correct.
Gotcha. She wrote a book called The Joke Machine that I have read cover to cover. It's right up my alley. You all know that I basically have the mental capacity of a 12-year-old anyway, so I think this is going to go really well. But Teresa, we're glad you're here today. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to write this book?
Sure. Well, so I was an English major in college, and I always loved books and writing and stories. And when I graduated from college, I became a technical writer, so I had corporate jobs most of my life. But I wrote on the side, and I started writing fiction because I just love fiction and stories. And I was writing for middle grade children, which is ages 8 to 12. And my
Okay.
stories were okay, but they weren't quite good enough to be published. And I started thinking to myself, if I could add humor to my fiction, I bet it would be really good. I bet then it would sell. And I
Yes.
started researching humor, and I started like really loving it because I found that there's kind of a science to it. And I was amazed that it's something that can be learned, because I grew up thinking that, either you're born with the funny gene or you're not.
Me too.
But
Me
but
too.
it really is a skill, and I just enjoyed learning it so much that I decided to put my fiction aside and to write a nonfiction book about how to be funny. And ironically, that's the one that sold. And I actually have more books coming out about humor. I have another one coming out about physical humor, and it's just, I'm hoping it's going to turn into a series about, different types of humor. So.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. By the way, listeners, I will, in the show notes to this episode, I will put down both the name of the website and a link to how you can buy that book. I noticed on Amazon it's 5 stars, so it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah,
So I don't know how many books I buy. I would probably read 20, 25 books a year. Not too many of them have 5 stars, to be perfectly honest. So I thought that was pretty cool. I noticed on your website, you mentioned Amazon Rapids. What have you published to that? I'm not that familiar with that.
Okay, well, actually, it's now defunct, but it was a very, very cool Amazon app where it
Okay.
tried to get middle grade kids reading. So there were short stories told in text message format on your phone.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and it
Okay.
was a subscription service. It didn't quite take off, but it was a very cool app while it was out there.
Yeah, I like the sound of it. And the grades you're mentioning right now are the ones that I substitute teach. I normally don't do a whole lot of elementary school or things like that. Do you have humor around your family as well,
I do. I do.
to the point of driving them crazy like I do?
I don't know.
Sometimes I like to be the life of the party and kind of joke around with everybody, no matter what situation I'm in, but it always drives my family crazy. So just talk to us why it's aimed at this target audience, and just go in any direction you'd like to go at this point.
It's aimed at this audience because I thought it just seemed so natural to roll it out to this audience. I think younger they wouldn't have understood it, and older, they might not have been that interested. Whereas I just remember from my middle school days, and I have 4 children. I have 2 are boys. And I just remember they loved humor, and middle grade boys love humor, and they are just that's the way they talk to each other, teasing each other and hitting each
Yes.
other over the head and spilling milk on each other and that crazy stuff. And I just thought it would just be so perfect for that age group.
Yes. That sounds great. And I've noticed that age group too. A lot of times, just cutting up with each other kind of brings people out of their shell a little bit. And I've done that in the classroom myself, trying to get them to talk more. So I totally support that. What would you like to share with substitute teachers who think they would like to better connect in the classroom?
Okay, So Greg and I talked about this ahead of time. And so I came up with 7 ways that I think substitute teachers can use humor in their classroom.
Okay.
So first, they can use it to connect with kids. And I think it's a great way to build rapport and trust. And, you know, a substitute teacher is someone who just walks into a room, may be cold, right? Doesn't know kids, doesn't know sometimes they're long time subs, but sometimes they're not. And it's a really good way to connect and build rapport. And I thought they could even, you know, start the day with a joke or start each subject with a joke. And on my website, I actually have a lot of subject-specific jokes, like science jokes,
yes.
blah, blah. So if you want to, you know, use jokes in the classroom, I think you can use it to diffuse conflict. You know, if 2 kids, like, let me give you an example. Like I remember when I was in school that people were always fighting to who's first online. So if that's happening and the substitute teacher comes in and didn't see who's first in line, you could use a joke to like diffuse that conflict. And because who are they going to pick? They weren't there. So they could say something like, you know, whoever can answer this joke, you're first online, you know.
Gotcha.
So maybe a joke like, Greg, where do meatballs, I didn't say it right. I messed it up. I'm going to start again. I can't read without my glasses. Why was the math book so sad?
I don't know. Why was the math book so sad?
It had too many problems. So that's an example. Okay, a third way, engage or re-engage their interest. You know, perhaps if the lesson is going on long and there's lots to teach, you know, surprise them and say, okay, I'm going to wake you up with a joke. And you know, you could have a subject-specific joke. Like, what's the difference between drinking 3 sodas and going to the bathroom?
You know, I'm going to get one of these right eventually, but I don't know.
About 20 minutes. Okay, a fourth way is to use a joke as a reward. So, you know, you're going through the lesson and say, oh, we got 5 more minutes, you know, please pay attention. If we get through the next 5 minutes, I have a bunch of really great jokes for you. So here's one. Where do you go when your dog needs a new tail?
I don't know.
The retail store. Okay, use a joke to select a student for a task. Like I remember when I was in school, for some reason, it was such a great thing to be selected to bring the attendance envelope down to the attendance office. I don't know, everyone fought for that task. And a substitute teacher, like they, you know, they might not know the kids, they don't want to pick a favorite. So you know, whoever can answer this joke, you're the one who gets to bring the envelope down. So let's see. Where do burgers go to dance?
Where do burgers go to dance? Man, here, I always thought I was a clever person. I can't come up with the answer to any of these. Go ahead.
The meatball.
Can I ask you something real quick? Real
Sure.
quickly? I used my adverb correctly there. The jokes that are in the book, I mean, I read everything through Kindle. So I highlight a lot of things. Did you come up with all of those?
Not all of them.
Okay, all right, because that was pretty clever.
Yeah, I came up with about 60% of them.
Okay, that's good.
Some of like classic jokes, which we do have the right to use, you know, why'd the chicken cross the road, something like that.
Right.
So we use some classic jokes, but most of them, because they had to fit into those real specific categories of each chapter, I really wound up making up a lot of them myself. Yeah.
You want to know one of my favorite ones from your book? Can I say that?
Sure, yes, please.
I like the one where you mentioned, I forget what section it was in, about which came first, the chicken or the egg. So I ordered both from Amazon to decide to figure out which one came first. I really like that one. I like that one. I liked a lot of them. I didn't mean to get you out of your progression there. Go ahead.
No worries. Okay. So number 6, the 6th way you could use humor in the classroom is for a substitute teacher to build a reputation. Like I know they're there to teach, obviously, but you know, being a popular, fun teacher isn't a bad thing. So you know,
right, absolutely.
So bringing humor and jokes into the classroom, you know, as long as you're integrating them appropriately, I think super positive thing.
Yes.
And my seventh way is to use humor to teach, which is what my book is about. There's a lot in my book, and it's too much to go through right now. But
Right.
if you have an English lesson where you're teaching creative writing or expressing yourself more creatively, or teaching something like compare and contrast, metaphors, homonyms, homophones, something like that. Like my book
Sure.
talks about all those different types of things and how you could use humor to express yourself more creatively. So,
Right. I like that. One of the things I always try to do too, and it's basically exactly what you're saying. I always tote a small whiteboard around with me, and I'll tack it up outside the classroom when I'm teaching for more than just a day. And I'll put some of the one-liners and sometimes I'll just I won't put the punchline on there.
okay.
I'll save that for the classroom and we'll talk about it. And then sometimes I'll let them challenge themselves. Now that I've read your book and got a better feel for how to do that, I can see ongoingly, maybe challenge them to come up, especially if I'm in there for several days, come up with your own joke. Let me give you a topic, or maybe let me give you everything but a punchline and see who comes up with the best answer. So I can just see this going all directions.
Right. I mean, you really do learn a lot about words and the placement of words, and the like rhythm of words by trying to create jokes. So I think it's just such a valuable subject to study. I don't know. I love it.
I do too. You mentioned creative writing. Is it your theory that kids can punch up what they write for their teacher by adding some humor in this regard?
Absolutely. And
I think so too.
And I think if a teacher's reading 30 papers and one happens to be funny, it makes them laugh.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of a better grade, so it's not a bad thing. And it's a great skill to develop as a kid because you could use it through life.
Yes, yes.
Even in your professional career, if you're making a speech or any kind of public speaking, most people start with a joke or try to add
Yes.
somewhere.
Yes, and I had never thought about it. I guess I had, but subconsciously, the way you structure. I mean, maybe come up a couple of chapters, you come up with an idea first and then create the joke around that idea. And that would be perfect for what you were just talking about. Channel it to the group you're talking to. Even if you hear a joke that's funny, make it more personal when you get to that group. I picked that up while I was reading the book too. So I really enjoyed it. You did a good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Tell us, you mentioned you're writing other things. What other things do you have in your future?
Okay. So the next book that's coming out in the fall of 2021 is a book about pranking, and it's going to be in the same lines as The Joke Machine. It's going to be the similar characters, Dr. Crankshaw and Lola, and kind of like the second book in the series. So it's going to teach kids how to prank, but it's also going to teach them a lot about physical humor.
Okay.
So it's going to teach them how to use funny faces and funny voices and crazy arms and legs and different acting and physical humor in their pranks.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. One of my all-time favorite comedians is Dick Van Dyke from the 60s. And he was, to me, he was a physical comedian before his time. Now you think about like Jim Carrey and people like that, or even Michael Richards from Seinfeld. He was a big physical comedian. But I think all that's important. I have accidentally stepped in a trash can in the classroom. I didn't do it on purpose. But, you make it into something funny and they love it. They love it. They love that kind of thing.
Right. Really good. Yeah.
Well, it's been great having you here today. Are there any closing thoughts you would want to share with us before we get out of here?
No closing thoughts. I mean, just keep laughing, keep it light. I mean, I don't know when people are going to be seeing this, but we're in the middle of a lockdown now, right?
Right.
Serious time, and it's really important to keep laughing and to
no doubt about it.
There's a lot of not nice stuff happening out there.
Right. And you could not to speak towards people that have medical issues with this, but you know, you can be depressed about it, or you can try to stay upbeat about it. And humor is one of the ways that will help us to do that.
Right. For sure.
Right. Well, loved having you here today. You and your family. I wish the best of health to you, and I'll be watching for the new book. And I'll remind the listeners that I'll have the links on the show notes. And you have a great week.
Great. Thank you, Greg. You too. Have a
All
great
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.